Welcome to a series of videos from the Guards Museum. We'll be exploring the history of not one but 5 regiments of foot guards and delving into our rich collection which stretches back 380 years. In this video we're looking at the role of the Guards Armoured Division following the crossing of the Rhine in March 1945 and the advance on Münster by a mixed force of British Guards tanks and US paratroops. Despite the lack of joint training for this kind of operation and the slowness of the British tanks, this advance of 50 miles was one of the most successful and rapid of the campaign and a true example of cooperation between the Allied armies. The Rhine was the last natural barrier to the advance into Germany from Western Europe, and when planning its crossing on the 23rd of March, Field Marshal Montgomery knew that the way would be open for rapid advance towards the German industrial heartland in the Ruhr. He'd learned lessons from his hastily planned and ultimately unsuccessful attack on Arnhem the previous September, and he reverted to his usual approach, meticulous planning and a build-up of overwhelming forces. He assembled thousands of boats and amphibious vehicles for the crossing. The air and artillery bombardment for the operation was so heavy and effective that the German defences were quickly breached. The large parachute drops, which were Operation Varsity, all went to plan and accomplished their aims quickly too. Among them was the American 513th Parachute Infantry Regiment. They made this their first combat drop successfully, but found themselves on land already earmarked for British gliders, which soon began landing all around them. The crossing itself made use of landing craft and tracked vehicles like these weasels, which were able to cross the rivers and the land that had been flooded by the Germans as an obstacle. The 6th Guards Tank Brigade was ordered to move on Münster with the 513th as infantry support. The brigade was equipped mostly with Churchill tanks, which were designed to support infantry in this type of fighting, but one consequence of this was that they were slow, only managing 15 miles an hour in contrast to a Sherman's 25. They also lacked the punch to take on the German heavy tanks, but they were well armoured. Here spare tracks have been added to the front of the tanks to provide extra armour protection. The British and American troops had not trained together to work in this way, but they got on well from the start. The Americans took a liking to the British boiled sweets in exchange for chewing gum, and of course cigarettes were exchanged all round. The column set off on the 27th of March with the Americans riding on the flat tops of the Churchills. It drove through the night to reach Dorsten, the goal always being to capture bridges before they were blown up by the retreating Germans. The advance was stop and start, with ambushes and mines slowing the way, but other stretches open road. The paratroops would dismount to deal with resistance and take prisoners, while the tanks provided the heavy firepower. Few enemy tanks were encountered, but one night one of their Panthers found itself mixed in with the tanks of Lieutenant Stannard's Coldstream troop. Realising this before the Germans did, his gunner put 2 rounds into the less armoured rear of the Panther and knocked it out. Large numbers of prisoners of war were taken, and this photo shows how young some of them were. They were probably only too happy to surrender. Reaching Münster on the 2nd of April, the final attack was delayed till 10:30 in the morning to allow time for the defenders to surrender or withdraw, which most of them did. The Guards tanks then advanced through the rubble-strewn streets, with the paratroops clearing out pockets of resistance. With the fighting for the city over, the troops moved in to occupy what was basically a ruined shell of a city, mainly due to RAF bombing rather than the fight itself. Unfortunately, this ad hoc unit was soon broken up when the Guards tanks continued their advance after a 2-day rest. However, it was not the last time that they carried troops in this way. Here we can see the Scots Guards tanks, seen later in April carrying British troops. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and do subscribe to our channel, where we'll be exploring more of history and also delving into our collection in further videos. Thank you very much.